Title: Woman's prophetic texts warning of domestic violence before her death. Becky Ray Curran Trinker, a 28-year-old mother of one, sent chilling text messages to her partner, warning him that he could easily kill her and leave their daughter without a mother. Days later, on December 4, 2019, Paul Philip McDonough assaulted her, causing blunt force trauma to her head. Instead of helping her, he made a call to 000 and left her to die. McDonough was sentenced to 11 years and 6 months in prison with a non-parole period of 8 years and 6 months. Domestic violence is a serious issue that must be addressed. Title: Small businesses suffer from rising interest rates. Small businesses in Australia are suffering from a perfect storm of pressures as interest rates rise, adding to the already increasing costs of energy, rent, and insurance premiums. The Council of Small Business Organisations Australia fears that many small retailers and services will close over the next 6 months due to declining profits. CEO Luke Achterstraat says that many businesses are fighting fires on all fronts, and the rising interest rates are adding to their pain. Some businesses may temporarily close until the economy improves or reduce their opening hours to lower their bills. Insolvency figures may not be truly recording the hidden closure element amongst the economy at the moment. Queensland first approval for Indigenous teacher to help revive traditional language, preserve culture. Corey Apo has been recognised as a teacher in Queensland without traditional qualifications, allowing him to teach his traditional Waka Waka language. His permission to teach (PTT) is one of the first granted for a language teacher exclusively for a traditional Indigenous dialect in the state. Apo has worked to revive Waka Waka and build a language program at Eidsvold State School for the past 6 years, first as a volunteer and then as a teacher aide. His PTT is a recognition of his cultural background, important contributions to language education, and teaching experience. Community elder Doris Beasley said Apo's PTT would help preserve the region's cultural history. Title: Queenslanders urged to collect $14 million in unclaimed rental bonds. Queenslanders are being encouraged to collect their unclaimed rental bonds worth a total of $14 million, with some refunds dating back to 1990. The Residential Tenancies Authority (RTA) in the state has around 47,000 unclaimed refunds, with the oldest dating back to January 1990. The average unclaimed refund is valued at $307, with 42% worth $100 or less. The RTA is set to launch a campaign to encourage people to come forward and collect their outstanding refunds. The authority is also urging tenants to keep their details up to date to ensure their bond refunds are not delayed. They hope the victims die. Inquiry probes legal stalling tactics used on sexual abuse survivors. A parliamentary committee will investigate claims state and religious institutions are dragging child sexual abuse survivors into a war of attrition as they pursue compensation claims in court. Deliberately slow legal proceedings have been re-traumatizing survivors trying to seek compensation. The committee will scrutinize the legal tactics used by some institutions in compensation claims by survivors of child sexual abuse. The Community Development and Justice Standing Committee will also look at the response of government and non-government institutions to those claims and how efficiently courts deal with those cases. The impact on survivors is enormous, and some institutions are using an array of legal tactics to thwart compensation claims and deny justice, despite the legislative changes. How making a doco on Italian migration and the mafia gave Anthony LaPaglia a new understanding of his father. Actor Anthony LaPaglia's upcoming documentary series The Black Hand delves into the little-known reach of the Italian mafia into far north Queensland cane fields in the 1920s and 30s. The three-part series explores the struggle of early Italian migrants and the question of what migrants bring from the old country, and what they leave behind. The program documents the Black Hand's decade of extortion, arson, kidnapping and murder and links to the underworld in Calabria in southern Italy. LaPaglia, whose father was among the post-war wave of Italians to move to Australia in the 1950s, believes the series shows an interesting side of Australian history that is omitted. WA doctors back small towns under 18 energy drink ban and say it could absolutely be expanded. Doctors in Western Australia are supporting a small town that banned the sale of energy drinks to anyone under 18 years old. Bridgetown, a town in the southwest region of WA, enforced the ban earlier this year as part of a Telethon Kids Institute research project. Dr. Sarah Youngson, who spearheaded the project, said that initial results have been promising, with little pushback from the community. Other WA towns have also approached the institute about implementing their own restrictions on energy drinks. WA President of the Australian Medical Association Michael Page has backed calls for the ban to be expanded. New technologies turning food offcuts into ready-made meals. A new project at the Northern Territory's Charles Darwin University is looking to bolster Northern Australia's food supply chain through novel food processing technologies that turn low-value products from the region's meat, seafood, and vegetable industry into shelf-ready meals. The project aims to provide better food security for the region during natural disasters that could cut off main transport routes. Thermal sterilization technology could be used to allow food to be transported and stored without refrigeration. This could also help strengthen food supply in remote communities or during natural disasters and prolonged power outages. Title: Kangaroo Islands tourism bounces back after bushfires. 3 years after the devastating bushfires, Kangaroo Islands tourism operators are optimistic about a busy summer season. Southern Ocean Lodge, the internationally renowned luxury tourism venue, is set to reopen in December after being reduced to rubble. Despite initial challenges with insurance and investors, the rebuilt lodge now stands almost at completion. The state government has partnered with Qantas to provide more return flights from Adelaide to Kingscote. Improved connectivity is expected to drive more international tourists to the island. SeaLink ferry services currently provide critical transport to the island, with more flight options expected to increase competition. Title: Expert demographers debunk claim that COVID-19 vaccines cause a fall in New South Wales birth rates. A recent article in the Sydney Morning Herald claimed that the decreasing number of public hospital births in New South Wales is due to COVID-19 vaccines. However, experts in demography disagree. Professor Edith Gray from the Australian National University and Professor Peter MacDonald from the University of Melbourne have both stated that there is no direct evidence linking vaccines to falling birth rates. Additionally, the available data is incomplete, and annual figures show only a slight decrease in births compared to pre-pandemic numbers. The claim that vaccines are the reason for the fall in births is unsupported by the evidence. Title: Leaders in Wadeye propose social club to tackle alcohol-related issues. Leaders in the remote Northern Territory community of Wadeye are seeking to establish a community-managed social club to reduce road fatalities, black market alcohol sales, and encourage cohesion. Traditional owners believe the club would keep people in the community, reduce instances of sleeping rough in Darwin, and improve access to safe, monitored and controlled drinking environments. The NT government has backed the proposal and is awaiting approval from the Liquor Commission. The community has a history of violence and has faced significant challenges, including last year's riots, which destroyed over 100 homes. The club aims to reduce the prevalence of alcohol-related harm and help build community cohesion. Title: Larapinta Trail inspires artists' entry in Alice Springs Beanie Festival. A 230-kilometre trek on the Larapinta Trail in Chater, West MacDonnell National Park inspired artist Dina van der Gaag's submission for the Alice Springs Beanie Festival. Her handcrafted beanie was made with merino wool in a variety of colours, taking an estimated 20 to 40 hours to complete. Featuring wet felting and needle felting, the beanie embodies the Central Australian scenery that resonated with Ms. van der Gaag. Despite being unable to travel to Alice Springs this year, Ms. van der Gaag is thrilled to have entered the competition. The festival runs from Friday until Sunday. Title: Possible closure of aquaculture course threatens $7.6 million barramundi industry. An aquaculture course may soon be cancelled by North Regional TAFE, leaving local fishers without the source of East Kimberley barramundi that brings in $7.6 million a year. The course has allowed the Broome Aquaculture Centre to breed barramundi for the past decade, restocking nearly 500,000 juveniles into Lake Kununurra annually. The TAFE announced that it was proposing the centre's closure due to a lack of enrolments. However, the CRCNA predicts that the Northern Australia aquaculture industry will need between 1,400 to 2,300 skilled staff by 2030. Cancelling the course could lead to considerable job losses. Labor's Godfather seeks deal on electoral reform, but the devil is in the detail. Special Minister of State Don Farrell is pushing for drastic changes to the donation and spending rules for federal elections. The Joint Standing Committee on Electoral Matters recommended a drastic lowering of the threshold for disclosing donations, caps on donations and spending, including for third parties and associated entities, and increased public funding for elections. Farrell will have negotiations over the next few months, but legislation will wait until after the final report. A central aim of the proposals is to reduce the power of big money to influence elections. The devil is in the detail as it requires fine judgment. Refugees who fled ISIS worried after funding cut to support services. Queensland refugees who fled the ISIS regime are concerned that they will be isolated after funding cuts to an organisation that helps them integrate into the community. Farhan Khalaf and Kamal Gannon are among the refugees who have received support from Catholic Care's Toowoomba Refugee and Migrant Support Service (TRAMS) for the past 2 years. Due to federal government funding cuts, the service will reduce from 5 staff members to 2, affecting 700 refugees. TRAMS supports refugees with a range of issues, including translating, learning to drive, navigating real estate, and booking medical appointments. The cuts will impact the community negatively. Title: NT government-owned Power and Water Corporation to buy and sell fracked gas from Beetaloo Basin. The Northern Territory government-owned Power and Water Corporation (PWC) has announced plans to purchase fracked gas from the Beetaloo Basin to sell to customers, as issues arise with supply from Eni's Blacktip gas field. PWC has signed agreements with gas companies Empire Energy and Tamboran Resources to supply the gas, which is expected to be available for use in 2024. PWC forecasts revenue from gas sales to reach $402 million in 2028-29, up from $235 million in 2022-23. The move comes as PWC looks to address issues with gas supply and to provide reliable and cost-effective energy to its customers. Title: 89-year-old Primrose Brimson faces financial hardship due to rising cost of living. 89-year-old Primrose Brimson, a widowed mother of 2, living on an aged pension in Canberra, is facing financial difficulty due to the increasing cost of living. The cost of materials for her handmade quilts has grown beyond her budget, and she can no longer afford to sew large quilts, which kept her warm in winters. Ms. Brimson has experienced financial hardship before, having grown up during the Great Depression and World War II. A new report from the ACT Council of Social Service (ACTCOSS) reveals that many Canberrans are struggling with rising living expenses, with women disproportionately affected. Title: Ukrainian missiles hit bridge linking Crimea to mainland, Russia says. Ukraine has targeted one of the few bridges linking the Crimea Peninsula with the Ukrainian mainland, cutting off a critical supply route for Russian forces as Kyiv pushes to drive them out. The Russian-installed administration in the occupied parts of Ukraine's Kherson province released a video of the Chonhar Road bridge with craters blasted through the asphalt. Repairs could take weeks, causing logistical issues for Russian forces. The strike shows that Kyiv is attacking Russian supply lines to disrupt Moscow's defense of occupied territory in the south, where it is in the early stages of its most ambitious counteroffensive of the war. Hashtags. Title: Billionaire social media moguls Musk and Zuckerberg consider cage match in Las Vegas. Billionaire social media moguls Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg have stirred interest by proposing a mixed martial arts cage match in Las Vegas. The Twitter and Facebook owners have exchanged challenges and counter-challenges on social media. Mr. Musk tweeted that he was up for a cage match with Mr. Zuckerberg, who has trained in jiu-jitsu. Vegas Octagon, Mr. Musk tweeted, referring to an event center where mixed martial arts championship fights are held. Although the odds of the fight taking place are slim, betting agents have issued odds with some supporting Mr. Zuckerberg and others favoring Mr. Musk. Cecilia Haddad's ex-partner sentenced to 27 years for murder after saying he tried to shut her up. Mario Marcelo Santoro, the former partner of Cecilia Haddad, has been sentenced to 27 years in jail by Rio de Janeiro's Federal Court of Justice for murdering the woman he confessed to killing while trying to shut her up. Haddad's body was found dumped in Sydney's Lane Cove River in April 2018, and Santoro fled Sydney shortly after. The trial heard from witnesses and experts from Australia in a complicated and toxic relationship. Santoro was convicted of aggravated homicide, asphyxiation, femicide and concealment of a body. His lawyer has announced that they intend to appeal the sentence. People rescued from floodwaters after heavy rain left roads flooded in Adelaide. Emergency services have made swift water rescues in South Australia overnight after heavy rains caused localised flooding and roads to be closed across Adelaide and the Adelaide Hills. The South Australian State Emergency Service (SES) has responded to more than 240 calls for help since 9 a.m. yesterday. They responded to 6 rescues in the Adelaide Hills and 1 in Adelaide to save people trapped in fast-rising floodwaters. More than 100 volunteers have been called for flooding assistance after recent heavy rainfall. Motorists are warned not to walk, drive or travel through floodwaters. Title: Magnitude 3.2 earthquake hits New South Wales southern tablelands. Early this morning, a magnitude 3.2 earthquake struck Crookwell in the New South Wales southern tablelands. Geoscience Australia reported that it occurred just before 2 a.m. at a depth of 1 kilometre. While no damage has been reported, locals reported feeling the tremors. Seismologists warn that aftershocks may occur and urge residents to be prepared. Daily public transport fares to rise to $10 a day in Victoria from next weekend. Victorian commuters will be hit with a fare hike as the daily Meeki fare for public transport is set to increase from $9.20 to $10, while the single fare will increase from $4.60 to $5, starting July 1. The weekend fares will also increase by 8.7%, with a daily weekend ticket going from $6.70 to $7.20, and a single ticket from $3.35 to $3.60. The state opposition has criticised the increase, stating it will hit household budgets across Victoria. On the other hand, the Andrews government has pledged to lower fares during the elections, calling it the shortest-lived election promise in the history of Victorian politics. Title: Facebook and Instagram to end access to news in Canada. The parent company of Facebook and Instagram, Meta, has announced that they will no longer provide Canadian users access to news on their platforms. The decision comes after legislation was passed in Canada requiring internet giants to pay news publishers for their content. Meta will have to negotiate commercial deals with news outlets and pay for news content under the new law. The company has already started a trial blocking news for up to 5% of its Canadian users. The ban will take effect before the new law kicks in 6 months from now. Title: Air Vice Marshal Darren Goldie appointed as Australia's first cyber security coordinator as major law firm suffers hack. Description: a major Australian law firm that advises the country's 4 biggest banks and the health department has suffered a cyber attack, prompting the government to announce the appointment of the nation's first cyber security coordinator. Air Vice Marshal Darren Goldie will take on the role, which was created in February, as the government seeks to better coordinate its cyber response efforts. Law enforcement agencies are already working with HWL Ebsworth, which said it was alerted in April to an attack by Russian hackers. The Australian Cyber Security Centre and police departments are investigating. Publication date: Friday, the 23rd of June 2023. 1 hour 12 minutes and 23 seconds plus 0000 link. Australia has appointed its first cyber security coordinator as the government responds to a cyber attack on a major law firm that advises the nation's 4 largest banks and the Health Department. Air Vice Marshal Darren Goldie will take on the role, which was created in February to improve the country's cyber security response efforts. HWL Ebsworth said it was the victim of a cyber attack by Russian hackers in April and is working with Australian law enforcement agencies and the Australian Cyber Security Centre, which is also investigating. The Big Four banks have confirmed they are clients of the law firm, but have not specified which, if any, data may have been compromised. Title: Rust armourer charged with tampering with evidence after film set shooting involving Alec Baldwin. The armourer responsible for weapons and ammunition on the Rust movie set, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, has been charged with tampering with evidence linked to the fatal shooting accident involving Alec Baldwin. Prosecutors accused Gutierrez-Reed of transferring narcotics to another person on October 21, 2021, the day Halyna Hutchins, the film's cinematographer, was shot. The new charge is in addition to an existing involuntary manslaughter charge. Gutierrez-Reed claimed she mistakenly loaded a live round into the handgun that Baldwin was handling, thinking it was a dud. Baldwin was practicing a scene when the incident occurred. Queensland's oldest winery Romavilla destroyed in fire. Queensland's oldest winery, Romavilla, has been completely destroyed in a massive fire that saw emergency crews battling flames as high as 25 meters. The heritage-listed winery had been abandoned since 2012 and its former owners had sold the site. The cause of the fire is currently under investigation, with fire officers declaring it a crime scene. Although no one was hurt, the community is sad at the loss of the iconic winery that was established in 1877. Romavilla was of symbolic significance to the Queensland wine industry, with many considering it a member of the family. Former NT police officers' evidence delayed for Kumanjayi Walker inquest. Zachary Rolfe's evidence at the inquest into the death of Kumanjayi Walker, scheduled for next month, has been postponed until October due to a legal appeal. The former NT police constable had appealed a Supreme Court decision that forced him to answer questions at the inquest. It is yet unclear when the Northern Territory Court of Appeal will hand down its verdict, potentially pushing the inquest further into 2024. The inquest into Mr. Walker's death is expected to take 1.5 years to complete all evidence, and the final submissions are scheduled to be heard in February 2024. Squatting Russian diplomat refuses to leave terminated Canberra embassy site. A Russian diplomat is refusing to leave a site near Parliament House in Canberra, which was previously held by the Russians for a future embassy, triggering a standoff with the Australian Federal Police. The site has been voided as embassy land, but the diplomat holds diplomatic immunity. Last week, the federal government rushed a law through Parliament to cancel Russia's lease on the site, blocking the nation from building a new embassy building there. The government cited national security concerns to justify terminating Russia's lease for the land. Russia appears to be preparing a legal challenge to the new laws.